Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second day of our bootcamp. Today, in both tracks, we will be talking about federation and sustainability. So yesterday, we did a lot of work. You did most of the work about your own local data spaces, and today we are going to try and understand what does it mean to federate the data spaces that you have. But before we go to date 2, to the second day, I would like you to pick up your phones again, not to check if you have any messages, but to see what inspired you yesterday. So what were the important takeaways for you? What did you like? So we don't talk today anymore about what you didn't like from yesterday, just what you liked. So this is to wake you up, because I know you're probably tired from the dinner. Okay. Beer, what about wine? Okay, we will take care of better wine next time. But yeah, okay, networking, that's great. So this is, I think, the first time that you are all together physically in one place. So, and this is something that came up also through your discussions with the mentors, through the trainings that we had online, that you would like to have more of this peer learning, networking. So I'm very happy that we managed to do that. Overview of what others are doing, then technical details, and so on. So this is great. I'm happy that we have a good feedback from you. Now one last slide about day 1. So this is the takeaway from us, from the trainers. We were very happy yesterday that there was, in both tracks, so we have seen what Timo presented, what we have seen here. There was a lot of proactivity in both tracks. You really engaged. What we have seen that you have really strong local use cases, so you know why are you setting up your data spaces and what are the problems that you are solving. We learned a lot about use cases in the non-technical track, because we were trying to see what is the value proposition and so on. We have seen that sustainability beyond EU funding, it's still a challenge. So here, until the end of your pilots, we are going to try to work together with you to find what is viable, but it's also on you to, in a way, convince your local decision makers that that data spaces is something that is worth pursuing beyond the funds you get for the EU. And from the technical track, I think we understood that the challenge is to understand what is the available from the technical building blocks, and how, and the components that are available, how can they be practically used to solve the technical problems that you have. And then we have seen a lot of opportunities, so synergies between pilots. We have just saw your feedback as well, that networking and peer learning is important for you. There are many similar use cases, so you could exchange your experience and your ideas. How are you going to implement them by the end of the project? Now, something that came from the technical track yesterday. So the more individualized it's your governance, the less interoperable it becomes. So we are taking this technical challenge from yesterday to the non-technical track today. So today we are mostly going to talk. You are mostly going to think about what are your governance structures. Who decides what in your data space, and also how fast are you with those decisions, and how would they affect then federation. So thank you technical track for raising this issue. We are going to solve it today also in the business and governance track. And thank you everyone, of course, for your hard work and commitment during the first day. Another slide also, it's one slide you, one slide me today. What do you expect from today? So today at 4 o'clock, when we finished, what is going to be that you have learned? Okay, four participants typing. Any more? So now it's about federation, but what? It doesn't appear. Okay. Okay. Okay, here we are. Okay, you're lucky. I wanted to have around and then give you the microphone as the word cloud is not working. Understanding Simple. Wow. So we have representatives from Simple today here. If then can raise their hand. Where? There you are. Hello. Okay, so you are in the hotspot today. Okay, understanding Simple, improve governance, federation, guidance for next steps for the federation. Great. How others solve sustainability. Okay, let's see. Setting guidance for setting up governance. Goodwill from all to start federating. Okay, great. And this is exactly what is our goal today. So focus is on federation sustainability. We have seen that we have guests from the Simple project. So I hope in the technical track you will get new insights. What is the status of Simple and how you can use it. And then, of course, so can we really go from local solutions that you are developing to have the European impact? So the agenda, it's not 100% the same as you have received it in the invitation to this workshop. We have adapted it a bit yesterday and during the previous week to the ever-evolving situation. So we tried to see what would be the best in the non-technical track to address the issues, the concerns that you raised yesterday, but also to build on the results from yesterday. So we are shifting in the non-technical track today more to governance aspects of federation and data spaces. So in the morning session, we are not going to talk a lot about business. We assume business it's solved a bit. Then we go with a very short business federated business models after lunch. And then when we join together, you will have a bit of time to exchange the ideas about governance from the non-technical track with your colleagues from the technical track. So you will have a bit of a reality check what can really be done and what are the wishes that maybe are not feasible immediately. So you will correct your, you will try to adapt a bit what you have done during the morning session. And then we go with some takeaways and next steps and closing the event and so on by 4 o'clock. So now, yes, I pass the floor to Sile. And Sile and then Gernot will explain a bit about what are the concepts of the federation and where we are today. Thanks.
Good morning, also from my side. Hope you had a good evening yesterday and also got some rest to now again roll up your sleeves and start figuring out what does actually federation mean in your context and what needs to be adapted, further developed to actually make it possible. As you're all aware, the overall objective for the European data space for smart communities is to also connect, integrate, and federate the local data ecosystems and the data spaces that are developed in the different communities and member states in Europe. And in the context of this particular initiative, it means actually federating the 11 pilots, or at least working towards that. There's, of course, also the overall vision to start integrating and federating with the other common European data spaces, talking about energy, Green Deal, mobility. There's a lot of context also here from your pilots that would fit in that in these data spaces, but that is actually not in scope for this particular project. So we're not looking actively into that. Although, of course, the overall European vision is to work towards it to really enable the single market for data exchange. So in this context, it's really important to understand what actually what adaptations are needed. We've looked at you and recognized that there's a lot of different implementations for data spaces in all of those 11 pilots that you're working on, both from business, technical, and governance perspectives. And at the same time, for federation, there needs to be something common. There needs to be something that where you do things in a similar way to actually support interoperability. And now the question for today is actually what that is, both from non-technical and technical perspectives. So at the same time, while we're moving towards this type of integration, we need to also understand very clearly why would you actually do that. Because as discussed yesterday, there's a lot of context already that comes from the past, from your existing implementations. So any kind of adaptation also, of course, means money and time and energy put into that. So you need to be clear also for that why is actually the federation useful. So those are some of the key questions that we are looking at today. What are the main rationales for federating? How to actually do that, considering the different types of implementations in your pilot sites and data spaces, and in the end, what does it mean in terms of concrete use cases, concrete implementations? To then start off with the why and the rationales, we've drawn some inspiration from the overall business rationales for data spaces. I think this still holds true. This comes from the Data Spaces Support Center's guidance from already way back to recognize some of the high-level patterns for actually developing data spaces. Would it be sharing data and collaborating with each other to increase efficiency, to share costs, to make it easier to actually comply with different types of regulations through data sharing, etc. There's a pattern for enabling or fostering joint innovation, because no single entity would actually have the data available for only themselves to do that. So again, collaboration is key. There's aspects of combined forces, meaning that to actually share data with each other and let's say address some of the dominant players within the market. There's aspects of shared marketplace to really lower the transaction cost to gather the data individually and try to through collaboration, make it easier to benefit and create value from data. And then finally, of course, from this overall societal and environmental goals that we have, in Europe and hopefully also internationally, to move towards and work towards the greater common good. Now, at the same time, while there's those business rationales, we need to be also critical to understand, like, are these sufficient actually to work also for federation? Because this is especially critical in the context of smart communities, where you're confined with the stakeholders in your community, with the resources available in the community, and also actually the policy objectives for your municipalities and communities. So, is this sufficient? And because of that, in the updated blueprint, we also looked at some of the specific considerations from the business perspective for federation. Some of them then include contexts where it actually makes sense for federating and making those individual data ecosystems and infrastructures interoperable, because it makes it easier to provide a seamless, smooth service to your communities, especially in the context of neighboring communities, when people are commuting, or you want to provide a seamless, let's say, social services. I could bring an example right away from the country where I'm from, Estonia, and having the possibility to get the prescription actually that for medicine actually in Finland, because data sharing between the two countries is happening. It makes sense, it makes the life of a citizen way better. The second kind of scenario for federation, of course, means or is about the, let's say, boosting AI development and enabling actually AI-driven services for also smart communities. We're recognizing and let's say assuming that many of the smaller communities would not have the amount of data available to actually develop advanced AI models, and that's why collaboration again is key to actually source it also from other types of data spaces. Then there's the third, let's say, scenario or consideration for business, thinking about how to actually also make smaller communities relevant and attractive to different types of external service providers. Because when harmonizing your infrastructures, doing things in a standardized ways, it eases also entry to the market, and then you let's say, support the aspect of actually attracting and inviting different types of service providers to your community. This, of course, also supports competition, and as we know, competition can help also bringing up the quality of services and avoid different type of challenges regarding being locked into only few, let's say, service providers. And then there's the fourth, let's say, scenarios that we've looked at, which is a bit also similar to the previous one, because it's, let's say, recognition that many of the communities and local side don't actually have the capabilities or resources available to actually develop their own advanced data services. So replicating and learning and federating with each other to actually use some of the services developed in other data spaces just makes sense. It, again, lowers the transaction costs and helps with bringing those services into the community. Beyond those kinds of business considerations, I think it's even clearer the motivation or the rationale for federation, and that is the political will supported with regulatory force. It must be done, is this kind of logic. But even if there's, let's say, international and European-wide interest for federation and enabling this type of data sharing, I think it's still important for each of one of you who are developing data spaces in your communities to also think that what are the internal incentives actually for that, because that will help to also justify the cost that will need to be put in at least upfront when you're adapting your existing implementations. So from that overview, you'll see that there are at least some hypotheses that federation would be beneficial. The next question obviously is how to actually work towards it. Again, especially in the context of your rather varied implementations for data spaces. So what we've looked at during the updating work of the blueprint is to look at scenarios, because we're also recognizing that there's no single model available for federation. Roughly, there's 3 different scenarios. I'll quickly run you through those, but also just take it with a little bit of pinch of salt, because there can be different kind of combinations, and still there's, I would say, a little practice available that we can learn from. So it's needs to be tested also what it actually means in practice and what is sustainable in the long run. So as the first scenario, we look at the data aggregation scenario. That means basically that there's some sort of a common service layer for all of the data spaces, supported with common standards to actually support the aggregation or combining the different data sets from the individual data spaces. Here, the context is that the individual data spaces actually need to work together to figure out what those common standards are to support interoperability. And for that, you need different kind of governance mechanisms or processes, how this negotiation would actually work out. In the second scenario, then we look at intermediaries. That is a recognition that some of the data space initiatives are working or are enabled by operators or intermediaries. So the context is that how would now the different type of ecosystems actually come together through the collaboration between the intermediaries. And that obviously means that the intermediaries themselves should be able to intermediate and interoperate. Here, the context is that the let's say, responsibility to figure out those governance mechanisms and what those standards and processes should actually be is on the intermediary side. And of course, that has a huge, let's say, assumption or condition again, that there's actually a business incentive also for the intermediaries to connect, to enable those network effects by combining those ecosystems. And then from the third scenario is actually the hierarchical collaboration model, as we've seen. And this is basically saying that there needs to be some sort of a governance structure in place that sets and enforces governance rules and sets the standards for interoperability from top down. We're seeing some developments around that. Obviously, it's supported with the work already happening in the different standardization bodies, but also for example, with the development of the LDT Cityverse EDIC, that potentially could take that role as a governance authority from the top to support then the federation also on the local communities side. However, again, this is with a bit of a, let's say, it's an open statement because it's also very much in flux whether the Cityverse EDIC would actually take up that role in the future. Now, again, as mentioned, these are let's say, theoretical scenarios. There may be also different type of variations for those scenarios in practice. And today we want to also look at those together with you to understand how might this work for federation with your context. What we did also in terms of the development work with updating the blueprint was to look at what would be the suitability of those scenarios for those different use cases. I won't go through those in detail today, just because also, well, for the sake of time, but also for the aspect that these are still hypotheses, and these need to be tested in practice with your help. What are the use cases that you want to enable through federation, and what would be actually supporting that the best way? But in the updated blueprint document, you can explore this a little bit further afterwards. Beyond the business considerations, of course, we looked at also the governance perspective, trying to understand what are the kind of unique considerations for governance in terms of the different scenarios. I talked you through already a bit about this in terms of who has the responsibility to set the rules for data spaces. But here, what we also want to highlight or emphasize is that, again, still there is context both from the local community level, on the regional level, on the national level, and in the European level. And that won't change just because somebody decides to set certain rules. It still needs to be embedded in this context. So what we, let's say, proposed also in the blueprint was to take a rather lightweight approach, saying that there needs to be some common framework available on the European level. We already see that with developments of the City Vorsetic, with Simple, with other standardization efforts, and in work from the relevant initiatives. Then there's context for the national layers. Again, taking the Estonian example, that we have our own implementation for data exchange in the public sector called the X-Road, that I presume in order to actually participate within the data space, it needs to also figure out how does it connect to the European level framework and to the implementations from the other data spaces. That it won't be realistic that it would cut off completely the existing policies, the existing infrastructure that has been already developed. And I presume that you have also similar context in your member states. And then, of course, it's the local and regional level. The lightweight approach also means that there needs to be some sort of autonomy left still back to the local communities, because in the end, even if there's some common layers for interoperability to federate, the decisions and let's say the local communities and the local data spaces are closest to the needs of your stakeholders to actually serve them the best. So there needs to be still some type of autonomy also left for that. We'll look into governance perspectives way more concretely during the workshop today. So I'll stop here for a moment and actually invite Gernot on stage to also talk you through a little bit the technical aspects of federation. You'll go much more in detail, I know, in the technical track, but at least to give a broad overview also to those who won't go to the technical track.
Good morning. First of all, thank you to the Ljubljana team for inviting us yesterday for a very nice evening. So it was a pleasure. And I'm talking about federation, technical federation. And yesterday I was a bit puzzled, a little bit pessimistic maybe, but I came to a typical sentence from the tech departments. Maybe it's not a bug, it's a feature, because today we have a very versatile, diverse situation landscape. We don't have the common standards that everybody can refer to. It's moving parts. And I think it will stay like this for at least 1 or 2 years, because there's work on the way, standardization requests from the European Commission, tech stacks developing. I think we have major 3 tech stacks. So we have the Eclipse stack, we have the Fiber stack, and we have the Simple stack. They will at least coexist, because there have been decisions made. I know from Deploy EMDS, they have chosen the Eclipse stack. Our recommendation stack is more the Fiber stack. And we have Simple here. We want to integrate with them. So this is one of our goals. And we have to find out how we do it. And the diagram looks a little bit chaotic maybe, but it's not. Because it shows 4, we have in the pilots, we have Participants, they have a tech stack, they have data sources, they integrate data, and they present data to their local data space. I think technically this is pretty much solved because you're in control, you're in the driver's seat, you can make your governance. We use Fiber, we use that. So you have control, you can decide, you can make decisions. We have, I think all stacks have some integration scripts, setup scripts. You can make a first minimal viable product in Eclipse. We have some demos in Fiverr, and we will see new development from our guests spontaneously. Therefore, they were not on the original agenda. And this is solvable. So then we have data sources we can integrate, we can present, we can have describe data with our data models. We will hear a bit about that today. So I think technically that's solved. But the control stops when you go further. This is what in your control, but if you think of cross-country federated data spaces here with 11 pilots, if you go cross-domain from smart cities to smart mobility, which will happen, but we will find diverse tech stacks at least the next 2 or 3 years, because it will not be like this and everybody switching to one solution. First of all, because people have invested, people have done work, there's maybe lack of money, lack of personnel to change, and maybe there's even a reason, because the tech stacks today have different pros and cons, so you can argue. I always compare it with cars. Cars are available for more than 100 years. There are tractors for the farm, there are race cars for the racing, and they will exist because it's different use cases. Sometimes you need something small and easy, sometimes it's high-value data sets, you need a little bit more security. I think this is different from open data sets in cities. So maybe it's, at least for the next years, not a bug, but a feature. You should think of it. Not as a problem, but as a given. So you will not come around. You will not be able to prevent this. And therefore, I come to the diagram that we've just seen. This is not only in the governance layer, but this is also in the tech layer. And I am mostly in my head, and we will see whether tests and work will show, I'm mostly in the middle, therefore there's a red cross. Because I see, as a business opportunity maybe, the intermediary services. Because if I have an Eclipse ecosystem and I want to go to a simple, or I am Fiverr and I go to Eclipse, I need an intermediary service that's just relaying. Because the data sets, the APIs are the same. The data plane is not depending on the data space stack. It's mostly just the control plane, the arguments about identities, about preparation of data exchange and contracts, so it's the preparation work. And I think this might be work of relay intermediary services that must not be domain specific, because if you are an IT company and you do such services, you adapt to existing standards like the Eclipse stack, and the Fiverr stack, and the Simple stack, and these are the stacks that are more or less the same throughout all the domains. So if you do a business, you're not stuck to one domain, you can do the same services in other domains too. So this might become a daily intermediary opportunity. So just relaying, yeah? Connecting an Eclipse ecosystem with a Fiverr or back and forth with federated catalogs. Sometimes it's just mapping. Sometimes it's just being a member of different ecosystems. And I think we have this situation all around. It will not be gone tomorrow. Maybe it can just be solved. I have an anecdote from car industry. I was told that there was a production line, and it was always expensive to create a car with a window in the ceiling. And I just repeat from my memory that it was cheaper to build in this window in the ceiling in every car, but having it exceptionally for just some of them. Maybe just make it a everyday thing, so that it will not be a problem or disaster tomorrow, just to connect from different ecosystems. I don't expect there will be in 3 years one technique for everything. I don't expect it, but prove me wrong or time will show. Good. So we have lots of things to do from the tech side. Mostly, at least within the tech stack, they are solved. We have aspects of interoperability, data models, we hear from it. We have some in AS, we have some in smart data models. It's solved. You have to combine it, you have to use it, you have to do it. This is something we will show in the next tech track. So we have the data exchange. Some APIs are domain specific. if you want to exchange data with others, maybe it's a good idea to go to cross-domain standards like OGC, Fiber, and GSILD. So there's options, but it's not hundreds, but maybe 5. And maybe 5 coexist. I consider a computer monitor. There are 2 or 3 entries for the signal cable. So it's VGA, DVI, or HDMI. Maybe there will be not one winner of everything, but 2 or 3 main competing and coexisting. Then we have the provenance and interoperability layer. This can be solved, for example, in gateways. It needs a little bit more standardization. Tools are there. They must be agreed upon and they must be built. I don't see this as technically as a very big challenge. Identification and attestation. We have competing systems. They start to come closer to each other, to converge, but this will take some time. Standardization is on the way, but even if the standardization is ready, at least it needs some time for adoption. So it will take some more years, again. Trust frameworks, several available, can be done. They are different. Maybe they just need to be relayed. If maybe you're just member of 2, and maybe your data set, you have 2 connectors. You have some infrastructure, and it's not a super big deal to just run 2. Why not have 2? It's just some servers in the cloud, and maybe it's not too expensive. But we will see. Access and usage policies, we've seen that yesterday. We are dealing with ODRL. You have to translate it into enforceable policies. This will also be a question for simple, and I've learned we write simple not with all capitals, but just with 1. And data value creation, and this will be fast. It's catalog systems. There we have the data space protocol, mostly solved. There needs to be some more ideas about federation, but this is on the way. We have publication and discovery, also exchanging DCAT data, and yesterday we've learned in the tech track, almost everyone is already on the DCAT train, so this is good, and it looks like this becomes the de facto standard, and we have value creation services. One individual, I think from me, I am missing a lot the aspect of monetization in data space discussions, because it helps convincing people if they can earn money, and not only putting a price tag in the description of a data set, but also applying payment services. That just you press a button, like in Amazon, I buy this data set for 10 euros. I think there's a little bit of work to be done. We have something for that, so that's good. In the end, tech stacks are there. It's easy in your local deployment. You have to make your own decision, your own local governance and technical implementation, and then just federate all pilots. Of course, it needs a little bit more details, a little bit more work. This is what we are here to help you. And I think don't make it too fancy, because what was written on Flavio's site, everything that makes you special makes it hard to be interoperable with others. So make it in a standard way, in a usual way, and don't think you are so, sometimes you are, so super special, because in the end, if you start to play with others, they are special too, but if you're very different, it doesn't harmonize. And so then I give back to Sille, and yeah, looking forward to the tech track.
So as we just heard, there's a lot of tools available already, tools in very, like roughly said, but the point is that any kind of innovation work, any kind of exploration of those tools, in the end is also political, and that means that it makes it difficult to understand what are the individual objectives from those different initiatives, where do you find common ground, and how do you actually move those tools forward so that it can actually serve the needs of those stakeholders. And that's why we need to continue working not only from the technical side, but also from the business and governance perspectives to move this forward. The final question that we had was the what, and it's not possible to provide a very straightforward let's say, answer to what federation means in all of your individual contexts, because that is actually dependent on you and your decisions. So what we're looking at today is basically to figure this out. What does it mean for you? What type of adaptations might be needed? And also with this kind of asterisk that there's also different layers for federation. Some of you are working within the pilot projects of trying to already federate the pilot sites and the individual data spaces within the pilot sites. Already that is federation, and that also might be challenging. But also then we saw yesterday that there's multiple different type of use cases that might be interesting across the different pilot sites as well. Now the question is that how can you make it possible to integrate among these different pilots? Lots of abstract, high-level talk for the last 30 minutes or so. As a next step, I'd like to really turn the mic and the stage more or less to you. So I would ask you to, again, go to Slido and at least give a quick type of reaction. As of today, how ready are you already to federate? And yeah, let's look at this a bit. The ratings, I hope, are clear. 5 means the most ready, already maybe done. 1 means least ready. Let's give some time for that. We're seeing also the number of people increasing. Well, good to firstly to see that there's variation for that. That means also that we can also learn from each other. I'd like to also not only do it in a Slido way. You saw this yesterday that I'm quite forceful in getting comments out of you, so I'll come with a mic right away to you as well. Is there somebody who is more on the, let's say, in the higher side, who answered 4 or 3 or so forth, to give a bit of context of what you mean by that?
Yeah, I'm from the DTCogo pilot. I think we are ready to federate. I think you're never really ready to or done, but I think we are ready to start, and we should start because we've been talking about it for a really long time. And it's in the end, it's a complex, at least from the technical perspective as well. It's a complex thing that you just need to do in order to see where you get stuck and then solve problems. So yeah, I think as a pilot we are ready to federate both within the pilot and to other pilots. I think we have the technical foundations ready. I think we have most of the data that we want to share and federate ready. Yeah, I think those are the starting points that you need in order to start working. And I think we have those quite clear.
Thank you. Anybody more on the lower side, 1 and 2s, to give a little bit of context of what are you actually missing to be able to federate, either from technical or non-technical perspectives? And this is not to put anybody in the spot to say, like, why aren't you ready already? This is more to understand the context, the reality, where we stand today.
Do I get a beer again? No, I think besides the technical challenges, in our case, it's hard enough within the pilots to convince the data owners to share the data within the pilot, and I think we are far away from convincing them of the added value to share it beyond, because it's not open data per se. So I think for us, it's not so much the technical issues, but the challenge, like to convince of why would you do that.
Great, and it's a great segue for my next question, actually. But I think it's that's a prominent challenge, of course, because it doesn't mean also only that you need to show how will you do it. You need to also actually change the mindsets of people and support them in being more confident in sharing that data. But as we mentioned, the challenge is why to federate. So the next question is to actually actually that to get a bit of a understanding of those who are already ready or have some ideas why to continue your path towards it. What are some of the value that you actually expect to get from federation? Not to reinvent the wheel everywhere. Consolidate extended data exploitation. Offer value-added services for the common good, and so forth. More data, added services. So it seems that on a high level, it's clear. We all work within the ecosystem of data spaces because we want to make sure that there is more access to data, there's more use of that data to innovate, to address the challenges that we have with data. However, again, within this context, we need to also then nudge it forward. What does it mean in terms of the actual investment that is needed for that? How do we then communicate and sell this to our collaborators, and how to also then sustain that over time? Let's wait for that last one participant to bring in their results. And with that, then I'll actually start closing to just mention that some of those answers we're trying to also get already today. Last slide here is around practicality, so I'll invite Urša on stage to walk you through that. Thank you.